Enchaunter here with a quick video talking about my first impressions of Crimson Desert, a game which I believed had the potential to be my favorite this year. Now, after about 10 hours of playing, I'm not so sure about that anymore, and in this video I'll be telling you why, while also briefly going over other aspects of the game, some of which I'm actually enjoying a lot. Anyway, if you stumbled into this video without knowing Crimson Desert, that's a single-player open-world action RPG by Abyss, the Black Desert people, which built up quite a bit of hype over the last few months, as they started revealing so much cool stuff, from the flashy combat to the Breath of the Wild inspired climbing and other mechanics, some steampunk elements, dragon riding and so on. I first became interested in this game after the previews started rolling in, as I watched two YouTubers that I respect, SkillUp and Luke Stevens, talk about their experiences with the game in two conflicting but complementary ways. To paraphrase their videos, SkillUp found the game's puzzles to be obtuse and lack guidance, while Stevens had a more positive take on it by saying Crimson Desert expects players to figure things out by themselves. Well, I love figuring things out by myself, so that sounded right up my alley, and that led me to buy the game on release expecting an open-ended, unguided experience that dropped me into the world and didn't try to lead me by the nose. Now, granted, this is a first impressions video and there's still plenty of game to go through, but my experience up to now is the complete opposite. I had to deal with so many tooltips telling me exactly what to do, so many annoying notifications that just refuse to go away until I look at them and get told what to do next, that I feel as if there was a developer constantly looking over my shoulder, so absolutely terrified of the possibility I might get stuck and leave the game in frustration that they cannot help but micromanage my every single action. Like in this gameplay section, which they showed as part of the preview demo by the way, where the quest marker tells you to ascend a tower. Nice, let's try and figure this one out, shall we? Oh, never mind, here's a tooltip telling me to burn the vines down with a fire arrow. And just in case I have no idea how to set an arrow on fire, there's another tooltip telling me that immersing an arrow in a fire source will, in fact, set it on fire. Thanks game, I don't know what I would have done without our guidance. Now let me be clear, I'm not against those tooltips existing. Everyone's going to get stuck at some point, and the developers need to place guardrails to ensure no one gets left behind. That's fine, and I'm glad they went through the effort of making a complex game more accessible, but on the flip side, forcing guardrails everywhere because you have to account for everyone means players don't get the freedom to try and figure out the game mechanics for themselves. I didn't get to feel clever by figuring out my own way of climbing the tower, because the tooltips immediately gave me the expected answers before I even had the time to understand the question. And that goes against every expectation I had for Crimson Desert. So please, for the love of Miyazaki, let me turn those off. Just give me a pop-up window when I first start the game, ask me whether or not I want the tutorial tooltips to appear, and give me a way of toggling them on if I change my mind later. Give me the freedom to fail so I can taste the satisfaction of succeeding. And the same goes for these notifications. Having that icon stuck in the corner permanently until I interrupt my gameplay to read it is by far the most annoying part of my Crimson Desert experience. I know my quest log has been updated game, you don't need to keep attracting my attention to it with that obnoxious mobile game style notification pulse. Just let me play my way, alright? Chill out for a bit. I'm gonna be fine by myself, I promise. In terms of gameplay, the movement and combat controls feel a bit weird at first, but they're not hard to get used to, especially since the early game enemies are generally very easy, so you can head out into the woods and practice to your heart's content. It all feels a bit heavy, ponderous maybe. There's this ineticism to Kliff's every move in a way that reminds me of Red Dead Redemption 2, but Kliff is a sizable muscle-bound Northman that hits like a truck and tosses enemies around as if they were literal ragdolls. It feels really good to charge into a bandit group, swinging wildly and tossing people this way and that, and looking at this skill tree, I feel like this is only gonna improve as I advance through the game. Ranged combat on the other hand felt a bit underwhelming. There's this forced auto-aim that means Kliff is always shooting at his enemy center of mass, preventing me from aiming at their heads. Also, on a controller, once you draw your bow, there doesn't seem to be any reliable way of not shooting an arrow, which allows me to waste a bunch of them already. Crimson Desert also suffers from a very common third-person action RPG issue, where you have to aim very precisely at an object to interact with it, making the experience very fiddly since the interaction button is also used for jumping, and missing the interaction spot allows you to jump instead, moving your character and forcing you to start over. The traversal powers you unlock very early on feel pretty good, climbing, flying around, using your magic manipulation wristband as a grappling hook. It all gives you so much freedom to explore the environment, and for me, it's one of the highlights of the game. The world of Pywell looks great, and I can easily see myself spending dozens of hours just traveling around seeing the sights. The only true complaint I have about the early game is the lack of somewhere to deposit my items. I know there's some sort of housing system later on, which will probably solve that issue, but for now, I wish I would at least deposit stuff on the supply chest near Kliff's bed. Inventory is at a premium, and I'm being forced to sell too much stuff that I would rather save for later. The story is the story. I wasn't expecting much from the start, and as of this video, it's still not very interesting. There are some vague mentions of how cosmic balance has been upset by something, and how Kliff has to mend it before it all comes crashing down, but it hasn't grabbed me yet. In that way, it reminds me of my experience playing The Elder Scrolls Skyrim, where, despite playing for almost 1,000 hours, I've never completed the main story, because I really wouldn't care less about saving the world from Alduin, just like I'm not inclined to care about the cosmic balance or whatever else. Instead, what attracted me to Skyrim and Crimson Desert alike are the massive land masses they allow me to explore, filled with interesting people and places, along with their little slice-of-life stories and small-scale drama. I don't care about saving the world, but you bet I'll listen to this husband and wife duo arguing about their rugged chimney, climb a tower purely for the view, or spend entirely too much time playing rock paper scissors with some children. And Pywell, at least the small slice that I saw up to now, really is amazing. The city of Hernand is filled with people and buildings of all sorts, with some great interior design. The outdoors is even better, with a really long draw distance and the largest variety of fauna and flora I've seen ever since Red Dead Redemption 2. And knowing this is just the tip of the iceberg is what's keeping me going, despite my early disappointments. In technical terms, it's a bit of a mixed bag. A lot of Crimson Desert's marketing was pegged on its relatively low system requirements for what are some pretty good graphics, but I feel like this ended up giving some people false expectations. The game looks decent even on the lower settings, sure, but the amazing graphics shown on their marketing require beefier PCs and some fiddling around with the graphical settings, which seems to have disappointed a fair few users. On the other hand, the fact that the game gives us so much fine control over its settings is great precisely because it allows us to experiment around and find the best possible combination for each hardware configuration, and of course, our individual tastes. I did notice some pronounced issues with DLSS in general and DLAA in particular though, so you might have to forgo using them, at least for the moment. My usual pet peeves are mostly covered. There's native ultrawide support, alt-tabbing works properly, and there's an option to change the controls though only for mouse and keyboard. There's no FOV slider, but the camera follows the Rockstar game style, allowing you to select between a bunch of preset distances, so all I had to do was set my camera to the farthest preset and never touch it again. I can't lock my frame rate to 60 either, which is a bit unfortunate, but that's a somewhat minor complaint considering everything else. The menu interface feels too slow though, switching tabs always takes an extra second or two, kinda like trying to use an old smartphone, especially when getting in and out of the map. Thankfully, the game provides a fairly well-featured radial menu that sidesteps most of the main menu's woes, the only major omission being the save system, which feels incredibly archaic. There's a very low limit on how many save slots I can have, and the process of making a new save takes way too many steps. Anyway, as I said, these are just some early impressions. My opinions will naturally develop as I play more of the game, but as it stands, I bought Crimson Desert expecting it to be a strong contender for my favorite game of this year, and after 10 hours of playing it, I'm disappointed. You would say that disappointment stems from listening to the wrong previews, and there's some truth to that, but I just can't get over the fact that both my sources would look at the tower section in the preview and independently remark that the game gives very little direction when in fact it told me step by step exactly what I should do. There's a disconnect there that never happened to me before. Time will tell if I'm just too early in the game, and maybe the developers will start expecting more of me in future chapters, but as of this video, I feel like I was promised Elden Ring and got Assassin's Creed instead. Anyway, that's enough from me for now. Those were my early impressions of Crimson Desert after about 10 hours of playing. Thanks for watching, I hope this video was useful to you in some way, and of course, feedback is always welcome. Bye bye!